Yes, we have the entity in those relations with the universe and universal forces, as are latent and exhibited in the present experience. In entering, astrologically, this we find only in part conforming to the influences as are seen or manifested in the present experience. In entering, we find the entity coming under the influence of Mercury, Neptune, Uranus, Venus and Jupiter, adverse influences in Saturn. These, as given, are only relations, and in part have been altered in the present experience. One, however, under the mental influence of Uranus and Mercury, finds the study of occult and mysticism as influences in the experience. One quick to anger, yet able to control self in the greater part. One considered by others often as stubborn yet in self is seen the reasoning influences of Mercury, with the variations at times through Uranus, that does cause the entity to appear stubborn for stubborn's sake, yet this altered by the benevolent influences of Venus and Jupiter. Only when adverse influences are seen with that of Uranus with Saturn, does this have a great influence in the life. This, as has been experienced by the entity, came during the year 1903 and in 1923, and again will be in 1934. These, however, are and may be controlled by the application of all's influences respecting same. In the application of self, we find one interested in peoples as well as in things. One who is exceptional for the time and period of birth, though this much changed by application of self. Good in detail. While the body one of vision, yet the ability to master details of conditions, of things, of numbers, is exceptional with the entity. One, in the influence of Uranus with Venus and Jupiter, that finds the study of influence of social, moral, religious and economic values very expressive in the own experience of self and the study of same in others most interesting. Naturally, then, a historian, good storyteller, good in expressing those elements as pertaining to details of storytelling, reading, or in such matters. As to application of self, the entity has found self a greater problem to conquer, being one who readily gains the correct concept of others whom the entity contacts, and this developed will bring to the entity much satisfaction. For the intuitive forces in self, cultivated in the idea and ideals as is held before self, will enable the entity to gain an insight into others' lives and others' problems, enabling the entity to assist or take advantage of the good or the bad qualities in others. The entity would have made a good minister, yet was never satisfied with the theology as was attempted to be propounded to the body. In the appearances, these we find bear an influence in the present experience, and the ability to control self. In the one before this we find in that period in France, when changes were being made in the mode of government, when the king was driven in exile, when there were rebellions. The entity then well in years, and one whom the king counselled with in the quiet times or periods. In the name then Markel, or in the better known name as the counsellor to the young king and aid to him in his education, his advice in care of self, and of the ones coming in contact with him, as the teacher. In the present we find the ability to counsel with those that are in straitened circumstances, straitened conditions, yet ever within self has been a fear of being censured by others. This should be better conquered in the present experience. In the one before this we find in the land, when the chosen people returned from captivity. The entity then among those who were first sent by Nehemiah to search out the land through which those returning must pass, and the entity gained through this experience in the service rendered others, losing in the censure of those who did not apply the lessons taught, even in the law. In the name Melcia, and in the present we find the sacred regard of trusts given the entity, and friendships, while not great in number, strong and enduring, yet that same applicable condition as regarding law as a text. Rather to the entity is that law that is enacted in the mind and soul of the individual. In the one before this we find in that land that was overrun by the peoples from the plain, when the land now known as Persia was divided, or overrun by the hordes of the hill and desert land. The entity then the keeper of the monies of Croesus, the king, and among those that were counselor to the king and the peoples, gaining in favour with the peoples, and keeping the trusts was given him the entity's charge. The entity then in the name Cayce. In the present is seen much of the ability to gain the proper concept of orders and of trust that may be made to the entity, and the ability to serve others as the teacher, the counsellor in many experiences, brings twofold in this experience that of the one who may, knowing self, apply that knowledge in aiding others. In the one before this we find in that land now known as Egypt. The entity then among those who came in from the land in which the priest was banished, or from the hill land where the temple was builded later, and now overflown when the Nile rises. The entity among those who became the aids to the priest, when order was restored. Again becoming the minister to the peoples in this strange land, to the entity of that period, and the entity gained through service given to others, in giving the understanding to the peoples of his own as well as of the strange land, becoming what would be termed in present parlance the minister or missionary of the period. In the name Asia, and the entity gained, and in the present, study, counsel, is ever the keynote in the entity's experience. In the abilities, then, as may be gained in the present, as is given, the entity may be the minister, the teacher, the missionary, the active one towards aiding others to understand themselves, whether by word of mouth or by written letter. The entity would find in self-application towards same the ability to write, and should use self in this direction, knowing there must be first the purpose, and the purpose and aim held before self. Self may build to that understanding as is found in him, who came that others might know. Ready for questions. Q. In the period of Nehemiah, was the entity Elisha? A. Of that period. We are through for the present.